You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I am Lucky Robert Curtis. I am the professional idiot. I am a columnist and screenwriter. Joining me is my co-host, the conductor of Mixed Martial Arts English, Thom Burton. Hey, Tom.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Rob.
Well, quite frankly, I may not have you back next time because everyone seemed to like you better than me.
Really?
Yeah. And I have to apologize. I got sick this week and I lost my voice, so now I sound like a character from Middle-earth. But I'm hoping that Tom's perfect Queen's English will offset my Smeagol-like voice. So we have a lot to cover. First off, let me just say, be sure to check out whatculture.com. They've got movie news, sports news, video games, everything regarding pop culture all on one website. It's a massive site, lots of authors, lots of articles. Check that out. Also, check out our friends on MMAshare.com, a global network of mixed martial arts fans. They give us all of our great content. Check us out on iTunes. You can search for us there in the iTunes store, Getting Lucky with Robert Curtis. Subscribe to us, rate us highly. We promise you favors and gifts. Also, if you're finding our podcast on whatculture.com or on YouTube, I'll have a link there. You can go and click on that to find other podcast subscription options, including Google and other places. Also, look for us on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel there. With every podcast, we put up a video. And this particular podcast, I'm actually adding in a slideshow of the fights and things like that. So it's not just one static image throughout the whole show. See what the extra work I'm doing for you? It's because I love you. Let's do some quick news and announcements before we get into the card. The first one is the Coach Rich Invitational results are in. And unfortunately, because of the Tim Means fight, that fight was taken off of the official ruling, so there were only 10 fights. And the winner, with a 9-1 score, I believe with both locks, was a rookie named Fredder. Congratulations, Fredder. You are now the prognosticating champion of the universe.
Put us all to shame. Put us all to shame.
I personally ended up 7-3 in the gatekeeper division. Did you participate on this one, Tommy?
Yeah, I went 5-5. I was on the prelims.
Maybe you should just hang up.
Yeah, I am a CRI winner though.
I haven't had one yet. I haven't participated in too many of them, to be honest. This is like my third one. But I always have a winning record. That much I guarantee. I have one piece of news. Tom, if you have one, you can share too. My piece of news is this. Johnny Hendricks has been denied a title shot. GSP's camp is lobbying for Nick Diaz. I think this is completely unfair. Of course I'm a homer. I've met Johnny Hendricks on Oklahoma State. I'm an alumni there. He is too. But with his 5-fight winning streak and his last 3 fights overall, ranked opponents in spectacular fashion, to me, Johnny Hendricks is clearly the number 1 contender. What do you think?
What the fuck is all I'm thinking right now. It completely ruins the integrity of the sport when you're pretty much handing out fights to, the guys with the biggest mouths over the guys that have been constantly winning fights. And this is coming from a guy with a loss on his record, on his last fight to Carlos Condit. I mean, you have to remember, he lost his chance to take on GSP when he lost the decision. I mean,
he had a chance to fight GSP, and he lost that chance because he couldn't handle the media scrutiny and the spotlight. How many chances is he going to get? I'm not saying he's a bad fighter. I'm not saying I dislike Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz. I like them. So you can't accuse me of being a hater, but I just don't think his candidacy as number 1 contender is very strong.
And this is coming from a Nick Diaz fan as well. I mean, I completely agree with you, and it just shows you how ridiculous this whole situation is. Johnny Hendricks has been knocking people out left, right, and centre. He's been out-wrestling wrestlers like Josh Koscheck, and this guy should be fighting for the title, and he's one of the big prospects to actually go on to try. That maybe this is the guy that can knock out GSP. It's just the UFC trying to cash in on a quick buck. I can understand GSP's point. He wants to legally be able to beat the crap out of Nick Diaz for all he says, but the fact of the matter remains he is the champion and he should be fighting who he's put in front of him.
We'll talk about the GSP Nick Diaz fight a little bit later in the show. Do you think that this is a worse travesty that Johnny Hendricks is being denied his title shot than Fitch? When Fitch, I think, went on an 8-fight win streak and had to go through round after round of fighters before he finally got a shot. Is this worse than Fitch?
Oh, God, yeah. Because when... I remember it was about 2 years ago, and I think Dan Hardy got the shot over him. I mean, I do like Dan Hardy as well, but there was literally nobody else to fight GSP other than Dan Hardy or John Fitch.
I think the Fitch might be worse.
Yeah.
The only thing that Johnny's got in his favor over Fitch is that he knocked out 2 dudes in a combined 58 seconds. Do you have a piece of news you want to share?
Yeah, this is a bit old, but this is still worth discussing. The UFC, at their pre-fight conference, announced the creation of the women's bantamweight division, and they gave Ronda Rousey the UFC bantamweight title, becoming the first women's champion in history. Now, whether she earned it or not, that's up for discussion, but in my opinion, I mean, she was already the champion of Strikeforce, and she clearly defended her belt, and she has the personality and charisma to be a star in the UFC as well, and this can only propel women's MMA even further. Now, not only will she be defending her belt, but she'll also be headlining UFC 157, and this is on a pay-per-view card as well.
So let's get to the card. The UFC was in Seattle at Key Arena. This is, in a sense, Benson Henderson's hometown. I think he spent 13 years there as a kid. But a more notable distinction is that this is the resting place of the immortal Bruce Lee.
Don't think. Feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
Thank you, Bruce Lee. As always, your words of wisdom are my daily guide to life. I think of you every moment of the day. Rest in peace. Let's get to the first fight, the only fight on the Facebook card, Scott Jorgensen versus John Albert, which is strange because Scott Jorgensen is a ranked bantamweight. I think he's currently ranked number 7 by Sherdog. Take those rankings as you may. What happened in this fight?
Well, before this fight, I mean, Scott, he'd already dropped 2 fights, and these were to interim bantamweight champion Renan Barao, which is nothing to be ashamed of. But he did also get knocked out by Eddie Wineland in brutal fashion. So I can see this kind of making sense, because the bantamweight isn't a very stacked division in itself either way. I mean, right from the get-go, I mean, we were treated to a sweet grappling match. I mean, Jorgensen getting the takedown, and John Albert just didn't get fazed by it. He started throwing submissions from his back, and this led to a contested scramble with John Albert sinking in a deep triangle at one point. How Scott Jorgensen got out of this, I don't know, because he was up against the cage, the triangle was deeply in. It's like his circulation was made of stone or something. And because of this failed submission, I mean, his limbs were pretty much gassed, and Scott took the back and he was able to sink in the choke pretty much with ease.
Here's what Scott Jorgensen had to say at the post-fight presser about his game plan and keeping his cool in the fight.
I stuck to my game plan. My last few fights, I fight, like Ben said, we're emotional guys. We get in there, and if you hit me once, and then I start to lose my cool a little bit, and it becomes I'm going to hit you as hard as you can hit me. That's what played out with Barao. That's what played out with Wineland.
What I saw was Scott Jorgensen using his wrestling to really overcome what I would consider sloppy grappling by John Albert. In the very beginning of the fight, they got into a little bit of a scramble. John Albert tried to take the back, but he ended up putting Jorgensen in his guard. Halfway through the first round, he scissored his legs around Jorgensen's body and swept to the right side, which precipitated the scramble you're talking about. But Scott Jorgensen's a good enough wrestler that he ended up right back in the guard. At the end of the round, John Albert tried to do that same sweep to the same side again, but I think this time Scotty was expecting it, and he actually slipped his hips out of the guard and ended up in taking the back, and that's where he slipped in the rear naked choke. Obviously, it's a little bit of drama that John Albert tapped with 0.2 of a second left in the first round. What do you see going forward? Let's start with Scotty Jorgensen. What do you see going forward for him? Like you said, it's not a very deep division, and he's already ranked. It seems like every time he fights somebody ranked, at least recently, he loses.
I mean, he's kind of in the top 10. He's trying to push back into contendership for me, and I'm just kind of thinking of the loser of Faber Menjivar.
I was thinking of putting him against another fighter on this card who looked really, really tactical. And I think it'd be a nice offset to Scotty Jorgensen's sort of brawler mentality, his warrior spirit, and that would be Raphael Assuncao.
I actually had that as well. I was just going to mention that later on the Assuncao fight. You stole it.
What about John Albert?
John Albert, I probably have to say Jeff Howland.
I don't really have an opinion on John Albert. He didn't show me much in this fight. Like I said, I thought his grappling was sloppy. I think you could basically put him up against any other bantamweight. Just don't give him another top 10 for a while.
He was pretty much rushed into that fight against Scott Jorgensen. I do prefer a guy that will just willing to attack off his back rather than just sit there with the guy on top of him and just pretty much closing his guard and being over defensive.
On John Albert, we have D Birch 18 from MMAshare.com. He says this. He says, Scotty has looked like complete shit lately, but Albert looks so good losing these last 2 fights. I don't know why they're feeding Albert to all these top dogs. It's pissing me off. He's a young dude. I understand what he's saying, what De Birch is saying, but it kind of ties back in. The bantamweights aren't a very big division, and unfortunately, it seems like half the division is ranked. So who's John Albert going to fight? You know, and he got a guy coming off of a 2-fight losing streak.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think the UFC needs to definitely sign more talent to the bantamweight division, and they should probably look at doing more tough bantamweights as well.
So we had a couple bantamweight fights. We have a featherweight fight coming up next. But someone did make a comment during the fight that the bantamweights and flyweights aren't exciting fighters and they should be cut. I completely disagree with this. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. But for the UFC to really grow in Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, which has a significant combat tradition, they are going to have to cater to smaller fighters. That's just the point-blank truth of it.
Yeah.
Vietnamese people, Thai people, Chinese people produce a lot of small fighters that easily could go 125, 135. And once we get into those areas as a mixed martial arts global phenomenon, those areas will probably be among the deepest in the UFC.
Yeah, I remember watching on television, in Vietnam, when people sit down in cafes outside, the chairs are little plastic toy chairs for kids, and these are adults sitting in them. I mean, it's crazy.
My wife is Vietnamese, and I've been to Vietnam. I'm only 5'8", technically 5'8 3/4", but only short people say that. I'm 5'8". And when I was there, I felt like I was on a basketball team because I was a full head taller than everyone. Let's move on to the FX card. Dennis Siver versus Nam Pham. I had this one pegged as a potential fight of the night candidate. This was an amazing fight, but not for the drama in the fight. Dennis Siver owned. He went off. What did you see?
Well, what I saw was quite interesting and quite funny as well, because we got the European fighting in the South Asian style of the Muay Thai and the Taekwondo mix, that you see with most of these Vietnamese fighters, and you got the South Asian fighter fighting in the European boxing style. From the start, Dennis, he immediately took control of the distance, and he did that through landing his leg kicks and his head kicks from his lead leg as well. And it's these types of head kicks that although they lack power, they can be thrown quicker and they can be used to frustrate the opponent and stop him from moving forward.
I completely agree. We've got a comment here from Velez. Very smart by Siver so far. Fan can't even get off. Siver is using all that energy to not even let Fan get a chance to do anything. What I saw, to what your point was, is that Siver was almost throwing up a wall of kicks, and Fan looked like he had no clue what to do there.
Yeah. Like
he was just standing there getting leg kicked, getting jabbed a little bit for the first round and a half. But halfway through the second round, Siver changed tactic. He went for the takedown.
Yeah. Like you said, he mixed up his kicks. He went to he attacked everywhere. He went to the legs, to the body, to the head. And in the second round, like you said, he switched up. He showed improved wrestling. And we saw this improved wrestling originally in the George Soteropoulos fight. But in this fight, we saw offensive takedown wrestling. And he was able to pretty much control Nam Pham, frustrate him. And he Nam Pham just didn't know what to expect. You know, you didn't know whether to expect a kick to the leg, to the head, to the body, or if he was just going to get taken down.
This was as dominant as I think you'll ever see. I think Seaver on the ground against a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think he had a significant strength advantage. Significant, because Fan... Here's the thing about Fan. Fan has a lot of credentials in various individual arts like Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think he's got a pretty good wrestling background, if I remember correctly. But what I've never seen him do is synthesize all of this into one art. You know, he's not mixed. He's just a martial artist. And when he's on the ground and he's trying to use his jiu-jitsu to get to a better position so that he's not just getting elbowed in the face, he's doing so in a way that you would expect to see in a gi tournament or something. He is leaving himself completely unprotected as he uses both hands to grab a knee or shift his hips out, and he's just eating shots. He has not in any way perfected using his jits in mixed martial arts because he's consistently leaving himself open for the one thing that you don't have to prepare for in jits, and that's elbows. I just got dominated. Check out these stats. These are the fight totals. Fan landed 24 total strikes for 3 rounds. Dennis Seaver landed 222.
That's crazy.
That's insane. This will be as lopsided of a decision as you'll ever see. The scores were 30-26, 30-25, 30-24. 30-24 means that Terry Bulkey, the judge, gave Dennis Seaver 3 10-8 rounds. That's insane. You never see that in MMA. We'll talk about the extremes of judging at the end of the show, but that is as dominant of a decision as you'll ever see.
I think that was a good decision from the judge as well, the one that gave the 30-24, because I think, you know, judges like to throw around 10-9s pretty much on most of the fights, and 10-8s are quite a rarity, and I think that was definitely... 2 of those rounds were definitely 10-8s.
Yeah, at least 2 of the rounds. A 10-9 round is the Ramsey Nijem Joe Proctor round 1. That's a 10-9 round. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's a razor-thin margin, and with a 10-point must system, you have to give one fighter a 10 and one fighter not a 10. So a 10-9 should be very close. 10-8s should be a little bit more common. If round 1 in the Seaver Fan fight was a 10-8, then round 3 was a 10-7, to be honest.
Although, I do have to say, one thing I do have to commend Nam Pham on, it's definitely his chin. I mean, he took some hard shots to the face, and he just kept coming forward.
There's no doubt, Fan is durable. Someone on the site said that he has skin like leather. He probably should have been cut and beat up a bit more. He took a lot of damage from the kicks and to the face. Guy's got a ton of heart. He's a warrior. He's kind of like what I said about Shogun in our preview for this event. He'll make great fights, but he'll lose half of them. So congrats, Fan. Another great fight, but Seaver looked amazing. He really is a force at featherweight. What do you see coming up for Seaver?
I'm going to say Ross Pearson if he beats George Soteropoulos, just because so he can avenge that loss that he had to him.
So check this one out. I was thinking, why not give Dennis Seaver Pablo Garza? I think that'd be a really exciting match.
Yeah, I do as well, actually.
Pablo Garza looked pretty damn good his last fight. And with 2 very dynamic strikers like that, I really think it could be fireworks.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Face it, my pick was better. All right, let's go to the next fight. This one is Abel Trujillo versus Marcus Lavesier. Before we get into this particular fight, this was originally supposed to be Tim Means versus Abel Trujillo. Tim Means, on the day of the weigh-ins, was cutting weight in the sauna. He slipped, hit his head. From what I understand, he completely knocked himself out and wasn't medically cleared to fight. My heart goes out to Timmy. He was on our show. He's a very nice guy. I know it's easy to have a laugh when you hear something like this, but keep in mind that prelim fighters don't make a lot of money, and he was supposed to fight on the 151 card, and that was canceled. Now he was expecting a payday today. I don't know if the UFC has given him his show fee. He did tweet out that he did thank the UFC for supporting him, so I guess maybe there was some compensation for his time. I really hope that he recovers quickly and gets right back in the octagon. He's an exciting fighter, and it's just really sad to see him lose a fight like that.
Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, I mean, if the UFC didn't pay him, maybe, he can get compensation from the hotel or wherever he took his sauna from.
Good call, Tommy.
Yep.
English Tommy, thinking like an American. Sue their ass off. I love it.
Sue their ass. Yeah, and I think we need to change the name of the podcast to Getting Unlucky with Rob.
Oh, I know. I'm starting to worry that Vince Pichel's gonna get struck by lightning or something. Be careful, Vince.
Yeah. George Soteropoulos will get run over by a car as well.
Yeah, Hector Lombard. Oh my goodness. So, to the fight. Abel Trujillo, UFC newcomer, fighting Marcus Lavessier. And boy, did they remind us of Marcus Lavessier's Division III fighting record. Undefeated in Division III. My buddy, also an Oklahoma State alumni, OK State 2011, wrote this. Oh, Mike Goldberg. Anyone who tries to compare Lavessier and his undefeated record to Cael Sanderson, the Division I undefeated only wrestler, truly doesn't understand amateur wrestling. And boy, my buddy OK State couldn't have said that better. The difference between D1 wrestling and D3 is not like, to use football, Chelsea versus, say, the bottom of the table. Like, who's at the bottom of the table now? Queen Park Rangers, Wigan?
It's Queen's Park Rangers, I think.
Okay, well, there you go. The difference is actually Premier League to, like, say, Division I.
Brighton FC. Yeah.
It's a huge difference. He's not fighting anywhere near the caliber. If Marcus Lavessier were to wrestle a D1 wrestler in his weight class, he'd probably lose half the time, at least.
Yeah.
So, congratulations on a D3 record, but don't throw his name in there with Cael Sanderson. Lavessier had a simple plan. Try to take down Abel Trujillo. Abel Trujillo is a 4-time NAIA All-American wrestler, and he is strong as hell. You could look at him. The guy looks quick, and he's got core strength from his shoulders all the way down to his knees. Lavessier has a very non-MMA style of wrestling, and Mark Munoz, surprisingly enough, has this same style. Grab a single and hold on for dear life. Abel Trujillo, in an interview with Karen Bryant after the fight, actually talked about this strategy.
He was just going for the takedown, and I knew if I defended it, and he was real persistent. He was leaving his head right there, just going for the takedown, so I had to take advantage of it.
Here you got Lavessier holding on to a single and eating elbows. What did you think of the fight?
Well, from the start, we can see Michael Lavessier's wrestling credential. He shot in hard on that first takedown. It was super quick. But Abel Trujillo, he was just able to keep it standing, and he did get himself backed up on the cage, but he dealt with it perfectly. He was pretty much attacking. Attacking with knees, attacking with elbows to the back, and he was hitting him hard.
For most of the fight, Trujillo did not look like he was in danger of being taken down at all. There were one or two moments where he scrambled.
He just got back right out.
Right, exactly. This led to a second-round TKO, which was basically a stoppage for knees. These knees were absolutely sick.
I remember that. I think it was similar to George St. Pierre, Matt Serra, where he was just kneeing him constantly in the body, and I think the ref should have stepped in a lot quicker.
The fight turned when Lavessier had a single, and he was working against the cage, and he kept eating elbows to the face. I think they got broken up. He came in again, and bam, he had a huge knee, which there's a beautiful picture on the internet if you want to see it. You can actually see like Lavessier's head turn almost all the way around like The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And when he went down and he turtled, and Abel Trujillo is basically having his way with him in every sense of the word, you're right. I think the ref should have... The fighter did not look like... He didn't want to tap, but he wasn't defending himself, and I think he probably ate one or two extra knees that he shouldn't have.
Another thing I noticed in this fight as well was from that knee, like you said, this is the kind of technique not just from wrestling but from Muay Thai. When he defended the takedown, he pushed his chest straight onto Lavessier's head, and then he pushed him forward, went straight for the Muay Thai plum, and kneed him straight in the face, and that's what led to the drop. So, not just wrestling, this is an all-round game from Abel Trujillo.
He trains with the Black Zillions, and
yeah,
they are a good camp, there's no question about it. What do you see next for Abel Trujillo?
For Abel Trujillo, I still think you should fight Tim Means.
I have Tim Means already matched up against someone else.
Oh.
We'll get to that in a second. I'd like to see Abel Trujillo against another stout, short, compact, brawny lightweight with a good ground game. I'd like to see him fight John Tuck, the guy that fought on the UFC Macau card. He's the Guam fighter. I'd like to see Abel Trujillo fight John Tuck and see how their stand-up looks. What about Marcus Levessier?
To be honest, I don't think he's cut out for mixed martial arts. He's just a wrestler, a one-dimensional wrestler, and I can't see him lasting in the UFC long.
I don't either. I didn't even pick a fight for him, honestly. You could just give him any sort of bottom-of-the-table lightweight and see how he does. Let's go to the next fight. Daron Cruickshank versus Henry Martinez. I first want to say, when you miss weight because you don't want to train, it's an embarrassment. Henry Martinez is a very small lightweight, and he missed weight by several pounds. And it's not because he had a medical condition like Anthony Johnson, when Anthony Johnson missed weight by like 7, 10 pounds, whatever, when he fought Vitor. He missed weight because he didn't want to train. He came in doughy. And when you do that, it's shameful, not only for the fighter, but you're embarrassing your coach, Greg Jackson, your camp, the other fighters you train with. I think it's horrible. I get so disgusted when I see that, because there are a lot of fighters out there that are killing themselves to get into the UFC. And then you've got guys like Henry Martinez that can't even do the basics of training and dieting to take their opportunity seriously.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is pretty much a quite clear cut, because I know the UFC doesn't like fighters coming in overweight and then losing the fight, especially from a head kick as well, knockout.
But there's a silver lining to this. Daron Cruickshank probably had the greatest night of his professional career. He dominated the fight, like you said, but he also got 20% of Henry Martinez's purse, which is what happens when you come in fat. You give away 20% of your money. And for a prelim fighter, that's probably anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. So I'm sure Daron Cruickshank was extremely happy about the whole fight. Daron Cruickshank is one of these new breed complete mixed martial artists. How did he win the fight?
He pretty much won this fight by his superior stand-up. He was able to work the body, he worked the head as well. He just kept him on the back foot and was able to completely dominate him.
It was pretty amazing. This card, you saw a lot of really nasty body shots. I think there were some in the fan fight. You'll see some later on the main card. And Daron Cruickshank, you could just... To me, this fight was like the 12 days of Christmas. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a wicked body shot. On the second day of Christmas, Henry Martinez gave to me, starting to lower those hands and cover those ribs. And what do you know, on the 12th day of Christmas, we get a high kick to the side of the head, and Henry Martinez gets knocked the fuck out. Wow, that was awesome. The replay was awesome. The pictures are awesome. Henry Martinez laying on the ground and holding up his hand like he'd won the fight was awesome. God, it was a great fight, and we'll get to the bonuses and all the things at the end of the card. But this should have been the knockout of the night, out of question.
Yeah, I agree. Definite knockout of the night, because I mean he clearly deserved it, fighting a heavier opponent as well, and it just would have been sweet justice for Daron Cruickshank.
20% of Martinez's purse and $65,000 on top of that. That's what he should have gotten. We had a funny comment from MMA Ham from MMAshare.com in regards to the body shots that Henry Martinez took. He wrote, "Hope he's just fat and not pregnant, because those body shots are bad."
Oh, that's a brilliant comment. Who said that?
That was MMA Mayhem.
Oh, yeah.
Mayhem. It's just a double M. I don't know how to pronounce it. That was the funniest comment of the night. Congratulations. That was good. What do you see coming up next for Daron Cruickshank?
I'm going to have to say the winner of the next fight.
The winner of Nijem Proctor.
Yeah.
Here's who I say. Give Cruickshank Tim Means.
Oh, so this is who you were saving him for.
Yes, boy, howdy. I think Tim Means is clearly the better boxer, but with Cruickshank's all-around striking game, this could be a really exciting fight.
Tim Means has a good clinch as well.
Yeah.
That's another
He's got those
thing.
knees, and because he's 7 feet tall, I mean, he can knee anybody in the face. He's not really 7 feet tall, by the way. I think he's 6'1".
He's just a massive lightweight.
That's a fight that could be pretty damn explosive. There could be easily an award, fight of the night, knockout of the night, coming out of Daron Cruickshank, Tim Means. Give it to Timmy. He needs a good fight. When he comes back in February or March, give him Daron Cruickshank. Do it, Dana. Do the right thing. Let's talk about the next fight. Ramsey Nijem versus Joe Proctor. What did you think of this fight?
Well, Ramsey just came in. He pretty much dominated this fight, but not in the sense that he beat the crap out of his opponent. He was just a better fighter. He was able to control his opponent better. The pace of the fight was with him.
I agree that he definitely controlled the pace of the fight. I think I got a comment here from Valace from MMAshare.com that summed it up pretty well. Nijem may be a bit messy, but he doesn't stop at all. Proctor had trouble actually getting into the fight where he probably had the superior technique. I think that's absolutely true. I think Ramsey
Nijem.
I think he came in and it looked like he tried to implement some striking stuff that he'd been working on. But 2 minutes into the fight, he was winging crazy punches and coming crazy. Proctor looked like he was way more technical on the ground, more composed. But this was probably the closest fight of the night. I didn't find it particularly compelling just because even though it was close, I thought it was fairly unskilled overall.
You're usually going to get these unskilled fights with these former tough veterans.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great for the undercard, but I can't see them making it on the top of the prelims or the main card.
Joe Proctor probably is a pretty technical fighter. He comes out of Joe Lauzon's camp, but Ramsey Nijem has this sort of interesting outbreak monkey cardio frenzy that I think completely took Proctor out of what he was wanting to do. What do you see up next for Nijem? Who would you put him up against?
Oh, I put him up against Daron Cruickshank.
I want to see him against Takeya Mizugaki. I think that would be a good one. Mizugaki looked really good in his last fight against Hoagland.
Yeah.
The next fight, you and I owe an apology to one of these fighters, and it was Mike Easton versus Raphael Assuncao. Both of us were pretty down on Assuncao. We thought he shouldn't be ranked, and he was overrated. Let me say on behalf of the Getting Lucky podcast, Mr. Raphael Assuncao, we are sorry. You proved us wrong. You completely dominated Mike Easton in a very tactical fight.
And Mike Easton can go to hell.
Tom, would you like to extend your apologies?
Yeah, I'd like to extend my apology to Raphael Assuncao. I mean, we pretty much wrote him off. And like I said, Mike Easton can go to hell. He made us look like idiots. Fucking asshole.
We're not bitter. I think Mike Easton came in with some fire and some gusto, and then every time he tried to create an exchange, he ate the last shot, either with a punch or a kick.
Yeah.
And I think he immediately started thinking rather than fighting. You know when fighters are just standing there looking at each other? Well, that means that there's a tactical battle going on. Assuncao was waiting to counter, and he had Mike Easton's timing down perfectly. On Easton's side, he was thinking, crap, every time I go in there, I get the worst of it. This is on top of the fact that in the first round, Assuncao broke his arm. Very much a cerebral fighter, completely shut down Mike Easton, took him completely out of his game plan, and made the Hulk look boring. Congratulations, Assuncao.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. That was a good job of Assuncao for not actually showing the pain that he was in from his broken arm. I mean, I couldn't see any pain in his eyes at all, or any feeling of it.
No, completely stone-faced.
Mike Easton, he was trying to pull the fast, powerful two-punch combination with hooks and jumping hooks as well, and tried to step into it, but every time he stepped into them, he just ate a right hand from his Raphael Assuncao's straight punches.
I don't like fighters with that herky-jerky style. Like, Mike Easton kind of does the same thing that Frankie Edgar does, how he just stands and bobs and kind of has a seizure in front of you. Like, it's not really defensive, it's just, I don't know, I don't like it. I have to admit, I do like Assuncao's more composed stance. Very calm, very relaxed, almost Machida-like, almost Zen-like.
Yeah.
And then when Easton would come in a very calm, collected way, Assuncao would move out of the punches, get out of the way, block, whatever, and then pow. Ultimately, did you think this will be good for Mike Easton?
I mean, Joe Rogan brought up that his trainer, what's his name? Oh, Lloyd Irving. His trainer, Lloyd, he wasn't taking notice of any of the combinations he was shouting out, and I think, maybe this will be a wake-up call for him to maybe listen to his trainer more and pretty much do what your trainer says.
Mike Easton had an 8-fight win streak, so losing this fight will probably get him on a tactical level, thinking more. Physically, he's got all the tools, I think. He's a big, strong guy, got good cardio, good speed. The mental part is where he was checkmated today. What do you think about Assuncao? I've already said give him Scotty Jorgensen.
I was thinking maybe Cub Swanson.
What about Mike Easton?
I was actually going to give Mike Easton to Scott Jorgensen. That was who I was going to give it to.
I think, why not give Scott Easton Uriah Faber? I don't think Uriah Faber's a top 5 in any weight category anymore. Uriah Faber might be transitioning into a gatekeeper phase of his career.
That would be good for Mike Easton as well, because, I mean, Uriah Faber's a big draw, and that would put him on the main card.
Next fight is Yves Edwards versus Jeremy Stephens. Again, I think both of us did not pick Yves Edwards. We weren't as negative towards Yves Edwards as we were to poor Raphael. But this fight was exciting. This fight was finished with a first-round KO. How did it happen?
Well, I don't think any of us were expecting Jeremy Stephens to get knocked out. But, I mean, once the fight started, when you're looking back at it, you can kind of see why. I mean, Jeremy Stephens was just throwing these wild hook, flying knees as well. The only word that I can describe this is spamming an overhand right just constantly. And I mean, Yves Edwards was just able to telegraph this right on. I mean, when you throw that many overhand rights, you can just pretty much anticipate them easily.
That's exactly what happened. Yves Edwards, in his post-fight interview with Karen Bryant, said this.
Woodley in the back, Woodley's like, man, when that guy grimaces, you know he's coming. So that's a great time to counter or just bite down on your mouthpiece and go, you know. So that's what I did. I saw his face just tighten up, and he threw that big overhand right, and it's just perfect time for me to throw that rolling right hook.
So Yves Edwards knew exactly what to look for when Stephens was telegraphing. He slipped and wham, nailed him. Jeremy Stephens never saw the punch. Jeremy Stephens took a nap.
Yeah, I think this is a good showcase for younger fighters, you know, for trainers to show to younger fighters. Don't overcommit yourself and act like an idiot. Stick to your game plan. Use this. Control yourself as well.
Jeremy Stephens is probably facing one of those things that fighters get into when they're on a losing streak. He's lost 2 in a row. He was pushing, I think. He was looking for something spectacular, looking for that one punch to right the course. And the post-fight presser, Yves Edwards was actually very, very gracious about his position as one of the elder statesmen in this sport. He's 36. What do you see coming up for him?
I want to give him Raphael dos Anjos.
I was thinking John McDessie. What about Jeremy Stephens?
I'd like to see him fight Mark Bocek.
I said Sam Stout, but I think either one of those is a pretty compelling matchup.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jeremy Stephens is going to be cut because he's now lost 3 fights, but he's an exciting fighter. He's got power, probably among the best in the division, and those types of fighters have a longer leash with Dana. Give him Sam Stout. Both fighters are sort of on the up and down. Both fighters are stand-up. I think that's a good fight.
Another thing we forgot to mention, though, I mean, it wasn't just a one-punch knockout. Those fucking elbows scared the shit out of me. And I was literally in awestruck of that.
The most impressive elbows, in my opinion, have yet to come. They happen on the main card. We'll talk about them in 2 fights. And as a perfect segue, let's talk about the main card. The first fight was Mike Swick versus Matt Brown. Again, we completely discounted Matt Brown, the immortal. This was a second-round KO. The first round, though, was extremely surprising. I don't think anyone expected it to go to the ground and for Matt Brown to dominate on the ground. The most dangerous moment of the first round was when Matt Brown nearly had the triangle.
Yeah.
And it looked like Swick was concerned about it. He looked a bit frantic. He crossed his legs on top of Matt Brown's chest. I managed to avoid it. But with Matt Brown's offensive grappling, Swick was defensive the whole round. I was shocked. Round 2, we saw something completely different.
Matt Brown clinched him, put him on the cage, and hurt him with those elbows. And that's what set up the knockout.
Some people thought that Swick didn't look 100%. Matt0204 wrote, "Am I the only one that thinks Swick looks a little unhealthy?"
No.
Obviously, Swick is an extremely lean fighter, so he looks like he's coming straight off of the weigh-in. But right before the knockout, he was sort of staggering around like he was drunk. And I think that it wasn't a cardio thing. I don't think it was he was unhealthy. I think he ate an elbow, I believe a left elbow, in a clinch with the dirty boxing from Matt Brown. And when they separated, Swick was hurt. 1-2, bang, bang. Swick goes night-night. Amazing finish. Well done, Matt Brown.
Matt Brown's a finisher. What can you expect?
He's had a hell of a 2012. He's 4-0 for the year now. What do you think comes up for Matt Brown?
I've been hearing posts on the MMA share saying to put him up against Dan Hardy. I disagree. I think he's ready for a top 10, and I want to give him Jake Ellenberger because that'll be a fucking fight.
That's a good one. I was thinking of giving him the winner of Mike Pierce or Seth Basinski. What about Mike Swick? I think I have a good one for Swick.
This one I haven't really thought about too much, but...
Think about this then. How about another striker coming off of a loss? Martin Kampmann.
I can see that. I mean, I would have liked to give Martin Kampmann maybe a top 9 ranked welterweight, but it does make sense for him to fight Mike Swick, and it would be a very good fight as well.
Yeah, I think the fans went on that one. Let's get to the most controversial fight. Rory MacDonald facing BJ Penn. Before we get to the fight itself, on the weigh-ins, BJ weighed in as a welterweight, 170, at 168. This is just further evidence that BJ is not a welterweight. I don't know if he cut weight. There was a video that he posted 2 months ago where he said 175, almost on fight weight. No welterweight is 175 48 hours before they weigh in. They cut 10 pounds of water to weigh in, and then on fight night, they're 185, they're 190. And I guarantee you Rory MacDonald is on the upper end of welterweights. That kid is almost a middleweight. A lot of people got sucked into this fight because BJ looks serious. BJ looks focused. BJ looked serious, and BJ looked focused in Frankie Edgar too. And that's the fight of their duo that he clearly lost. I did not have high expectations for this fight, and I thought it would end very much the same way as Nick Diaz. How did Rory win?
Rory won through being the better fighter, having the better skill set, and using his grappling and his mixing up his kicks and his punches. He has excellent boxing. I think he managed to take BJ down at one point. He's got excellent wrestling as well. He was able to control his opponent. He had his opponent on the fence, which is the worst place BJ Penn can be, which we saw in the Nick Diaz fight, and he got hit in the body too many times. And when you're as fat as BJ, that's not good.
Rory did something that was pretty remarkable, and I think he scouted this fight really well. BJ was coming in with overhand punches, mainly with the right. And Rory had scouted this, and when BJ was coming in, Rory threw that short left elbow, and he caught him a couple of times. And it was beautifully timed. I've never seen a fighter pull that off so significantly. Maybe it's because there's such a height difference that it was easier to land. I think the majority of why Rory dominated this fight is because he had a 6.5-inch reach advantage. He probably had a 20 to 25 pound weight advantage. He's 3 to 4 inches taller than BJ. He's just a physically bigger fighter, and he's 11 years younger. This is a sideshow. This is a circus freak show. This is not a competitive fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just shaking my head at BJ. This guy shouldn't even be fighting at welterweight. He should be fighting at his natural weight class in lightweight. And after the fight, Dana White said he wanted to see BJ retire, and I disagree with him. I don't think BJ's lost his edge or his fire, as you would say. He's just fighting in the wrong weight class. He shouldn't be fighting there.
A lot of people were critical of BJ using the same narrative that he came in out of shape. But I saw another, I believe it was Joe Lauzon, or maybe it was Alan Belcher. They tweeted out the people that were saying that were crazy because if he wasn't in shape, there was no way BJ would be able to take those body shots. That will make you look like you're out of shape. And if you're out of shape and you take a body shot like that, you're done. So I agree that BJ probably came into this fight with a good camp. Before, he had trainers that wouldn't talk to each other, and he had to train with one guy and then go to another facility and train with another guy. He got all that straightened out. I believe he was in good shape. I just don't believe he likes to cut weight. He looked pretty good in the first 3 to 2 minutes. He just was a much, much smaller fighter. Now, during the fight, Rory, he hurt BJ really, really bad. But then he stopped, and BJ bent over, and Herb Dean was ready to stop it. And then BJ recovered and stood back up.
Yeah.
And then Rory would hurt him again. Same thing happened over and over again. It was a trend I saw, and my mate Floyd, MMA share guy, also an Aussie, noticed it too. This is what he wrote. This is brutal. Rory smashes him, then lets him recover. Smashes him, then lets him recover again. Rory is really trying to teach BJ a lesson. It's sickening to watch. He could have finished him, but just chose to give BJ punishment. That's exactly what I thought.
He looks like a psychopath, and I genuinely think he is a psychopath. He literally just wanted to give BJ the most pain he'd ever felt in his life.
Here's what Rory said at the post-fight presser about him, whether or not he was attempting to finish BJ.
BJ's a dangerous guy, so It would be kind of an amateur mistake if I just jumped on him, everything I had, and then get clipped with a shot, you know? Just picking my shots, being technical, and if the knockout came, it came, but it didn't.
Now, in addition to him choosing not to finish, and I adamantly believe he chose not to finish, because when BJ was punched over 2 or 3 times, he could have swarmed. He started to showboat. He was doing his little hand jives like Machida. He was shuffling his feet like Muhammad Ali, although with his foot speed, we should really call it post-Parkinson Muhammad Ali foot shuffle. And he was dropping his hands and putting his chin out there. Rory denied that this was showboating to Ariel Helwani. He said, it's mixed martial arts, I'm trying things. No, you were showboating. I don't have a problem with fighters showboating. I think it's exciting. It can be Henderson showboats, Ali showboats, Frank Shamrock showboats. But here's the difference, is he's fighting a lightweight that's beaten and is not anywhere near his class. BJ is past his prime, and he's showboating to an injured, inadequate fighter. To me, this is like an NBA player dunking on high school basketball players at a pickup game. It's classless.
Fighters like Anderson Silva, Nick Diaz, they showboat, but they do it strategically. They showboat to get the fighter to engage. Rory MacDonald was doing it against a guy that he could have finished, literally finished in that moment, and decided to act like a jackass.
I agree. And that's the thing. That's the nuance between a guy like Rory and a guy like Nick Diaz. Diaz does it to precipitate his type of fight. It's like a wrestler going for a takedown. And you could see it perfectly when Nate Diaz fought Donald Cerrone. He taunted Cerrone, and Cerrone lost the plot, charged in, and that played into Nate's plan. That was the strategy. Rory was doing it to just showboat. There's no question about it. Rory's got great skills. He's a good talent. I don't know if I can't say on a personal level that I like him. What do you see next for Rory? He called out Carlos Condit. What do you think?
I'd like to see him fight Carlos Condit just so Carlos Condit could knock him out again, but it probably wouldn't happen.
I think Carlos Condit's a good fight. I go with that one. You talked about BJ Penn potentially retiring. Dana White asked for it. But you think you should stay at lightweight? I
think you should stay at lightweight. Just because you lose to Frankie Edgar shouldn't be a reason to jump to welterweight. I mean, I think there's still some good fights at lightweight for him.
Like who?
Anthony Pettis.
If BJ Penn wants to stay at welterweight, there's a fighter of a similar aspect of his career. This fighter is obviously further down the track than BJ Penn. Is pseudo-retired, but as recently I think as UFC 134 said to Ariel Helwani that he still has some stuff in the basement. And BJ Penn at this point in his career, he's really on sort of the Rich Franklin retirement circuit. He's like the PGA Seniors Tour. Why not give BJ Penn return match with Matt Serra? Matt Serra is a very small welterweight. He's a black belt on the ground like BJ. He's got good power. BJ insists on fighting at welterweight. Let him fight Matt Serra. They both have names. They can be on the main card. BJ will probably win. I think we can all agree BJ Penn should fight at lightweight. And if he does, I'd like to see him fight the winner of the Tough Smashes coaches fight, Ross Pearson or George Saroupolis. If he fights Pearson, Pearson's a brawler. That'll be an exciting fight. BJ can box. If he fights George Saroupolis is also a black belt on the ground, and he's got good stand-up. I think that'd be a nice... I don't think BJ warrants a top-level lightweight right now. Let's move to the next fight. Alexander Gustafsson versus your guy, your boy, Shogun Rua. Before we get on this, Raphael Cordero has been very critical of Shogun's training style, saying that he's no longer committed to training. And I think at the weigh-in and on fight night, you could see Shogun, even though he's 31, he kind of looks like he's got an old man body.
Yeah, he looks worse than Dan Henderson. And Dan Henderson's 40.
How'd the fight go?
Well, it was just Alexander Gustafsson able to tee off on a slower, shorter fighter. I mean, the reach is kind of the same, but Alexander Gustafsson does have the height advantage. He also showed some good knees from the clinch, and for some stupid reason, Shogun tried to clinch him as well. When you've got a guy who's way taller than you, you're never going to bring him down to your chest level where you need him to be to control him. So I thought that was a bit ridiculous on Shogun's part, but maybe that was just instinct. I don't know.
It's just indicative that Shogun probably didn't have much of a strategy other than just come in and be Shogun.
Yeah, it was just Shogun doing what Shogun does.
The first round, I actually thought was super close, and I would have given it to Rua. In terms of the numbers, Gustafsson landed 21 significant strikes. Hua landed 16. But I think the key thing that really put Hua over was that I think Hua got pretty, I wouldn't say close, but he had a dangerous position on Gustafsson with the leg lock. Gustafsson even said during the post-fight presser and in post-fight interviews that he was scared, and he fought like hell to get out of there right away. It wasn't high enough on the leg, but I think that submission attempt was enough to steal round 1. The judges didn't agree with me. Now, as round 2 and round 3 unfolded, Hua faded drastically. And I think, just listen to these numbers and you'll see what I'm talking about. Total strikes, round 1, Gustafsson 31, Hua 22. Round 2, Gustafsson 44, Hua 18. Round 3, Gustafsson 53, Hua 11. That's the fight right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not surprising. That's just typical Shogun, who are fading as the fights goes. I mean, through the fight, he didn't even land that many combinations. I mean, during the open workouts, I mean, you saw him punching the pads with his trainer, working on his boxing, putting full punch combinations together. It was just completely different from what he did in the fight. He was just coming forward, bam, bam, getting hit in the face while doing it, him trying to go to war with Alexander Gustafsson, and Alexander Gustafsson didn't want anything to do with it. He stuck to his game plan, which I commend him on. But what I do say is that I'm still not impressed by Alexander Gustafsson. In the first round, Shogun was able to take him down, and Shogun's not exactly, a Division 1 wrestler like Rashad Evans. I genuinely think that Alexander Gustafsson shouldn't be fighting John Jones, because John Jones I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's beaten the opponents that he needs to beat, like Dan Henderson or Lyoto Machida, Ryan Bader, Rashad Evans.
MMA Share user Ichimax agrees with you. This is what he wrote in regards to Alexander Gustafsson. He showed good chin. He ate a lot of big punches from Shogun and barely flinched. I was impressed by him. But that's my point. If Shogun, a shorter fighter, was able to land some shots, John Bones Jones will finish him. And of course, John Bones Jones wrestling is far better than Shogun. He will control him at will. If Gus doesn't improve drastically in his next fight, he would stand no chance. Great comment.
That is. I put my point forward. Rankings-wise, I don't think Shogun's there anymore. He's not even top 8. I mean, he's pushing Gatekeeper.
There might be a silver lining to this. Apparently, Shogun Hua was not taken to the hospital, but he didn't show up at the post-fight presser, and it was actually reported that he just left because he was so disappointed. If this is something that he has to endure, this sort of disappointment and not performing very well against what I consider Gustafsson an overrated contender, maybe he'll get his camp in gear. Maybe. What do you see next for Hua? Who would you like to see him fight next?
Well, like I said, I don't think he's fighting top 10 anymore.
I'd like to see Hua fight. This fight was supposed to happen, but it got canceled. And the fighter I'm thinking of is currently on a 6-month suspension for weed. What I'd like to see is give Shogun 6 months off to get his camp together, and then give him that Thiago Silva match that was supposed to happen.
That does sound good.
What do you think for Alexander Gustafsson?
Really, I would have liked to see him fight Ryan Bader or Rashad Evans, but I hear that the UFC is going to be matching him up with Lyoto Machida in case Dan Henderson's injured.
I heard that too, but Dan Henderson actually tweeted out that his knee is fine. So I expect the Machida-Henderson fight to continue.
Yeah.
And when you look at the top 10 light heavyweights, they're all kind of busy in the next month or two. Rashad Evans has a fight coming up with, I believe, Nogueira, Little Nog. So that really only leaves Ryan Bader for Gustafsson.
No in hell should he be fighting John Jones, in my opinion.
No, he's at least 2 fights away. Let's talk about the main headliner. Championship lightweight fight, Benson Henderson versus Nate Diaz. This fight was surprisingly one-sided.
It was one-sided, but I think both fighters came out to fight. Benson Henderson was able to control the fight, but Nate Diaz just was acting on pure heart. He did have his moments in the grappling department.
There's 2 quotes here I want to share with everybody. The first one was, Nate's performance wasn't timidity, and it wasn't the leg kicks either, which some people were speculating about. In round 1, Nate took a punch to the eye, and he lost vision. He said he was blurry the whole fight.
I caught a punch in the eye pretty early in the fight, and things were blurry. They never came back. I was waiting for it to recover, and when it did, I was going to come back strong, but it never did. So Ben did great. He landed the good shot early, and I waited, and I think if I would have tried any harder, it could have got worse for me. So I did what I could.
So you can see that Nate was really handicapped in this fight. Would it have changed the outcome? I don't think so. And his primary strategy, waging that mental war, in addition to his ground game and everything else, is something Henderson actually specifically prepared for. Now listen to this quote.
What we're trying to pay attention to, what we prepared for, is his mental approach to fighting, the way he gets fighters emotional and upset in the middle of a fight, and then they make a mistake and throw a flying knee from 5 feet away, and then he capitalizes on that mistake. If you're fighting somebody and he flips you off, or he says this, he says that, and then all of a sudden you get mad in the middle of the fight, what did you say to me? And then do something silly. I guess definitely an advantage for him. So
let's just give some numbers. Let's talk about significant strikes. For the fight, Henderson landed 124, Diaz landed 30. For takedowns, Henderson landed 8, Diaz had none. Very dominant fight, and I think Henderson has really established himself after the Frankie Edgar controversy as a legit title holder.
Yeah, I agree. I think he could become the number 2 greatest lightweight of all time after BJ Penn. He dominated the stand-up. I think that's what is most important. He attacked the lead leg, and he realised that his camp realised that the Diaz brothers like to plant their lead leg, and it kind of stops them from chasing down their opponents. It's just there so that when their opponents attack, they can counter and then start throwing off their combinations. But the downside is you can't chase them off.
I agree, and Henderson actually was doing something pretty interesting. He was actually throwing a right straight to right above the kneecap, the lower thigh on Nate Diaz, and it worked. There were a couple times he nearly took Diaz off his feet. After the fight, Benson gave credit to that technique to Alex Caceres, a.k.a. Bruce Leroy, who had done it to him several times. Had you ever? I've seen Anderson Silva punch someone in the thigh just as a way to show, hey, I can do that, to Damian Maia. But I've never actually seen someone punch the knee as a way to do leg damage.
No, I think it's just there to frustrate the opponent. I couldn't see too much damage, not compared to the leg kicks, because, I mean, if he was there to do damage, he would have just continued with the leg kicks. I think it was just pure frustration on Benson Henderson's part.
What did you think about when Diaz was on his back and Henderson was above him? He grabbed his ankle and just started punching him in the thigh, or the calf.
Yeah, I mean, that was great as well.
I agree with you. I think Henderson can become an all-time great, and I'll take it a step further. I think he can become greater than BJ because he's got aspects that BJ doesn't have. The number one of those is he clearly looks like he's prepared every single fight. Henderson, he's a new generation fighter. He's got athleticism, wrestling, striking, ground game, everything. He's got everything. And with his fire and his drive and his commitment to excellence like a GSP, if he rattles off another 4 or 5 wins, that'll put him at 23-2. That's a GSP type record. Yeah. And the lightweights are stacked. And if he gets through that gauntlet undefeated in 4 or 5 fights, I think you have to seriously start considering whether or not Bendo might be the best lightweight of all time.
Not only that, he's been defending his title a hell of a lot more than GSP and Anderson Silva. I think he's defended it 3 times this year. If he can just keep winning, he can probably crop up into the pound for pound.
What do you think is next for Ben Henderson?
I think he's probably going to look for a rematch with Anthony Pettis.
I think that with the death of Strikeforce coming next year, early next year, and the fact that Melendez isn't even fighting on that card, I think a super fight could happen.
Yeah.
And Ben Henderson's hoping to fight anybody, and that person's Gilbert Melendez, a Strikeforce lightweight champion. I don't know if Gilbert's on the same level. He's been fighting in a lesser promotion. But that's a fight to MMA hardcore fans, which will be super exciting. Maybe the common fan won't know Melendez very well, but that's the best fight they can make at lightweight, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it too. I mean, Gilbert does have excellent wrestling. I think he can get frustrated in the stand-up, which Benson, I think, was shown in the Josh Thompson fight, and that's something that Benson could take advantage of. So if that fight was to come to fruition, I would probably go for Benson on that.
Let's talk about Nate Diaz and how this fight with Bindo, I think, is a microcosm of what could happen to the Diaz style when Nick fights GSP. Bindo has a lot of the same skills and physical traits that GSP has. He's got great takedowns. He's a freak athlete with great power. He's a very large fighter for his division. He's got good striking. I think GSP's striking is obviously better than Ben Henderson's. But I think that style neutralized Nate completely. And we saw with the stats, very, very one-sided victory. The fight totals were 50-43, 50-45, 50-45. So there were 2 10-8 rounds in those judges. Nate didn't win a single round. When Nick fights GSP, I predict this is exactly how the fight will unfold. Exactly.
I think it's pretty much shown. If you have the combination of wrestling and kickboxing, it's just an excellent...
And foot speed.
Yeah, and footwork as well. It's an excellent counter to the Diaz style. If you keep him frustrated, if you circle away, you don't get trapped against the fence, you defend against the submissions, and you use your ground and pound as well.
And you have the mental strength not to get sucked into the taunting. And GSP, one of the strongest mentally athletes in the UFC. Ben Henderson showed that when you don't buy into it and you don't lose your cool, stick to the game plan, the formula is all right there. For Nate Diaz, I thought it would be great to see him fight the man that beat his brother, that is now back down to lightweight, Diego Sanchez.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
I'd like to see that fight as well, because Diego Sanchez he's not really the same fighter that he was when he fought Nick Diaz. He's kind of been on a bit of the slide, and I think it'll be a good fight for Nate Diaz, and he definitely probably won one of avenge his brother's loss.
And Diego's been talking some trash to Nick through Twitter, so that could be pretty exciting.
Cesar Gracie versus Greg Jackson as well.
Here's what Aravir had to say about the fight, harkening back to what we said. Benson is establishing a game plan for future fighters against Diaz, smother him in the clinch to avoid his boxing and take him down. I think Sanchez might be able to do that.
Nate's kind of not the fighter that Nick was when he fought Diego Sanchez. I think his ground game is much better, general grappling as well. I think Diego might have a hard time taking Nick down.
I don't see Diego Sanchez being able to keep his cool. That's the thing that really goes into to Nate's favor. So overall on this card, the submission of the night is a no-brainer. That was the only sub, Scott Jorgensen in his first round rear naked choke on John Albert. The KO of the night was Yves Edwards over Jeremy Stevens. I personally thought it should have been Cruickshank.
I agree.
The fight of the night, this is one that just blew my mind. Also Scott Jorgensen versus John Albert. There weren't a lot of fights that had drama. These were all pretty one-sided fights.
Yeah.
If you were to pick the fight that was the closest, Ramsey and Nijem versus Joe Proctor would probably be the most dramatic fight, like who's going to win. If you had to pick a fight of the night, who would you pick?
I'd probably have to go for Alexander Gustafsson, Mauricio Hua, just because it was also close.
Not Scott Jorgensen versus John Albert, that's for sure. If you want to look at overall great performances, Dennis Seaver and Benson Henderson, I thought, looked fabulous.
And Raphael Assuncao as well. And Abel Trujillo.
Raphael Assuncao, really a tactical fighter. That's a fighter's fight, I think.
Yeah.
When you watch what he was doing, at time the fans were booing, but what can you say? That was a beautifully orchestrated fight. He got Mike Easton doing exactly what he wanted. This card had 14,000 in attendance with a $1.5 million gate. The TV ratings were up from previous Fox cards with 3.41 million. Let's talk a little bit about the judging. There were a lot of 10-8 rounds on this card. Lots. That seemed unusual. Like the judges never seemed to get it right. I don't think anyone was shafted or screwed out of a win they should have gotten.
I could see 10-8 rounds for the Benson Henderson and the Dennis Seaver Nam fam, but what I don't agree with is Alexander Gustafsson, Mauricio Hua. There's no way any of those rounds were 10-8. And in the Dennis Seaver Nam fam and Benson Henderson, Nate Diaz fight, there were rounds where Dennis Seaver and Benson were dominating completely.
I agree. Is this the best card of the year so far? I think from top to bottom, with all the finishes, personally, I can take a lot of entertainment and joy out of a dominant performance like Benson Henderson or Dennis Seaver. I think it was a spectacular card. It had some controversy with Rory MacDonald being a
jackass, yeah,
Canadian psycho. I think it has to be the best card of the year.
Well, my card of the year hasn't even happened yet. I originally did think this, but because the fights were either one guy dominating or just generally not really that interesting, like the Ramsey Nijem fight, there wasn't that a true fight of the night for this card.
You're clearly 155, UFC 155.
Brad Pickett, Eddie Wineland, and I think that could be fight of the year. I think that could be crazy. Unless one of them gets knocked out, I think that could be a really good fight. And Miller Joe Lauzon. Those are two excellent fights.
And of course, Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez.
Yeah. And that fight's going to be finished. That's not going to a decision.
Well, that's our review of UFC on Fox 5. We've got another show coming later this week. It's actually our biggest show to date. We're going to cover both Ultimate Fighter finales, UFC 16, Nelson versus Carwin, which is Nelson versus Mitrione. Also the Tough Smashes, Australia versus UK. We have two guests. I got to talk to Australian coach George Soteropoulos and co-main event fighter Hector Lombard, so be sure to catch that. Also, check out our friends on WhatCulture.com for all of your movie, video game, sports news. And as always, our friends at MMAshare.com, the global network of mixed martial arts fans. Follow us on Twitter. I am at Mr. Lucky Rob.
And I'm at T_Burton_13.
Subscribe to us on iTunes. Check the page that you're on for a link to other subscriptions for podcasts and RSS feeds. Check us out on our YouTube channel. Thanks again for everyone listening in. The little show has really taken off. We appreciate all the support. We're trying every week to bring you the best show we can. Again, I apologize for my voice, but I brought you lovely English, Tom.
I know. Aren't I just fabulous?
All right. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you later this week.